Hello and welcome to the fifth meetup of the Formbird Water Professionals community. Today we're looking at web components. Thank you for joining us, everyone who's come. It's great to see some of you back and some new faces. We do this every 3 months and with the aim of keeping everyone in the Formbird community up to date with the latest, but also making sure that there's a two-way interaction between what we're doing and what you're doing. And so the two can come together and we can get some great results from that collaboration. To get the most out of today, we all insist that you interrupt, put your hand up, ask a question. If you're shy, just do it through the Zoom chat. Okay, so if you haven't met me before, my name's Paul. It's now time to let the good times flow. That's a water joke. Okay, so just as a reminder, we are recording this session. It's always be available on our website. You can watch at double speed if you think it's boring, or you can just jump to the good bits with the timestamps that are below it.
Are you going to edit that joke out?
No, I think that's especially for Adam, who's not here today. So I'll play it back for him at least. Now, thanks for the interruption. All right, that was what I asked for. Okay, so now, just a reminder, Formbird is now an approved supplier on 2 state vendor panels. Local buy, which is in Queensland, Northern Territory and Tasmania, and New South Wales is the LGP, which stands for Local Government Procurement. Should it happen, I assume you know how to use these sites. Okay, so what are we doing today? We've got Mark with some news, as well as an overview of web components. What are they and what do they mean to you? We also have a demonstration from Grant, where he's going to show us some examples of web components in action. Just 2 of the things he's been working on. He has got more up his sleeve, but he's going to keep them for next time, aren't you, Grant? Good.
Always got to hold something back.
So he's going to demonstrate the hot shutoff blocks, which is completely hot, and the KPI reports, which I'm sure we're all looking forward to that one. As well, we have a new presenter, Josh, our latest employee. He just finished his Bachelor's of Engineering with honours in mechatronics. So he's fresh out of the meat grinder, and he has his final exam on Tuesday. So welcome, Josh. We're all very excited to see you there. Can you wave, Josh? Or no, make us say something so you appear on the screen.
Hi, guys. Nice to meet you, I suppose. Yeah.
There's Josh. He's excited. We're excited. It's exciting. Okay. Just in the news, I'm going to say one more time, Focus is dead, gone, buried, mostly, and it's now called Clarity. So, Mark, can you tell us a bit of news about what's happened with Clarity and what's happening with Greater Western Water?
Well, I should be lucky here, but we finally had our major release, which is our version 4 of the platform. It is what we termed our Angular upgrade from the Angular JS environment. It's actually a lot more than just that, but it sort of has stuck, and there's a lot more technology beneath it than just that. But it's now been live for 2-3 weeks. Is it, Lockie? I haven't got my calendar up.
Let's go with 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah. Bit over 2 weeks. And we've got a application upgrade tonight for Greater Western, looking at a whole lot of safety items. I think it's the low voltage or the voltage, over voltage, and what else, Grant? And tonight,
and install temporary supply. It's a new action type.
Right. So there's a few things going in tonight as an incremental application upgrade as opposed to a technology upgrade. Paul, do you want me to roll straight on to components?
Yeah, all right. So just a brief thing from me. So Mark and everybody has been trying to tell me about how exciting components are. So it's an integral part of the structure that Formbird has adopted after upgrading to Angular JS. So Mark, what are web components? So it's important that they're called web components. And why is that, Mark?
Okay, let me take over and let me share my screen.
You want to share
I suppose the other, just on that Angular upgrade, just with a couple of the Greater Western, the Bundaberg guys there, the plan for Bundaberg is it'll be the 1st of December that they'll be cutting over. So they've been in test as well for the last couple of weeks as well. So that's it's all rolling out. Let me just share my screen, or at least the browser. Just got one. Okay. So what we thought we would do is sort of dive in a little bit, I suppose, not trying to get too techo with it, but just to, I suppose, fundamentally explain the basics around the architecture, or a key element, and particularly the key element of the architecture that users get to experience. And I suppose this is also to stimulate ideas and thoughts and utilization and really empowering people to go off and perhaps find their own web components, just understand what they are and what the importance are from a Formbird point of view. In many ways, you can sort of consider Formbird as a container or bucket of standard technologies. And one of those standard technologies is the component.
Do you mean Clarity?
Clarity? Yeah, well, no, because Clarity is an application. So Clarity and Fleet and all of that, they're applications, and Formbird itself is the platform. Okay, so the Formbird platform is a container for the components, and then applications are built utilizing the components.
Okay.
So just a little bit of sort of history and information about a component. A component is really that UI, and so really what a web component is it contains function, presentation, and data interaction. You push data to it or pull data from it, or both. So it might be a chart, a graph, a GIS presentation. Anything that we show on the screen is based on a web component. And so a component really is a bundling together of all those features. So the combination of the UI plus the function. So as the JavaScript frameworks evolved, there are a number of organizations. So Angular coming out, or AngularJS initially through Google, and that's a Google open source project with Angular. They developed their own Angular components. Facebook, and they're all really challenging for how they could best improve in terms of performance, capability, and function and presentation layers, their applications. So Facebook was another significant investor in this technology, and they developed a framework called React. And so there are React web components. And there are a couple of others, another one called Vue, and they all had their own kind of standard. So what's actually happened now is there is a published standard called Web Components, and I've got that up on the screen at the moment. You can go and learn about it. It really talks about the standards, the interaction with the browser, and how it sort of talks to the browser and how it relates to the browser. And so it's very technical. So I'm not going to dive into that because I don't know it.
Yeah. Just quickly, just a question that came to mind, Mark, are all the other vendors sort of doing web components, are they able to be used inside Formbird?
Yes, and I'll get onto that. Thank you, Paul. Absolutely. So web components is a standard. So it's a bit like a standard approach that we can then plug into our applications. In fact, in our latest release, we've moved so far to the point where you can virtually just reference a web component that might be sitting up on a website or hosted elsewhere, and turn it on and plug it into Formbird with basically no translation to a Formbird component. In our old release, when components were kind of fresh and new, we basically take the construct of the component and have to translate a little bit, like put a wrapper around her essentially, in order for it to work within our environment. Today, you can reference an existing component from a third party and interact to it without even telling Formbird about it specifically. So let me just start going through a few of them. So this is really just, again, for sort of reference. So React.js, which I was just talking about from Facebook, is a whole standard. So what I'm saying is you can really go out and just Google search whatever for web components, and I said there's a few keywords. React is one of them, and because Facebook has seen themselves as a presenter of imagery and a real GUI in terms of their application, and that's important from their point of view. They do have a lot of really good web components and components that we can plug straight in. There are also third-party providers, and this is from both the open source marketplace or open source development through to commercial providers of components and web components. And many of these guys will actually release them as React components, as well as Angular components, as well as just native JavaScript that you can, sort of plug in. And so really trying to cover the development market in terms of how they get implemented. But with our approach of basically, the ability to talk directly to the components, you can just grab the React component or Angular component and leverage it within the environment. So if I have a look at, something like here, we can really take a look at a whole lot of sort of UI functions that you might want to, utilize. So, here's a component for drawing graphs. And as I said, and they'll typically have a little bit of details about, how you can interact and how you can provide different sort of presentation layers, so you can see here, it's actually providing the ability to sort of put ranges, whether they be in graphs or whatever it might be, and really build up a UI or a component or a function within the applications, leveraging these components. Now people would have seen a lot of our components just by natively using them, all the way from our text box, our date controls, our GIS presentations. They're all components. But really what we're trying to sort of say is, inherently as part of an application, you don't have to wait for us to implement a system or a standard component. It's very feasible to go out and grab, a variety of components and leverage them within applications. And you can see even just this website here, these guys, there's quite a range of, presentations and menus and sidebars and all sorts of things that you can leverage. There are the third-party ones. So these guys here, Apex Charts, these are all React components. I'm just looking at the, so there's a lot on sort of graphical presentations and, so you can sort of drill down and these will have examples. Some will have example code in terms of how you would talk to it and present it. And so the sort of the beauty of the component is when you sort of place it within either Formbird or it comes with all of its definition, the HTML and everything else to really put it within, and we grab it and we present that. And then you can talk to the component as a sort of standard approach of how you would talk to it. And you can either wrap it very simply to turn it into almost basically a Formbird component that it's talking to that third party component, or you can just talk to it natively and say, I want to reference this component. Here's the URL, and this is how I'm going to talk to it, and this is where I'm going to put it on the Formbird form. Some of the ones that you would have seen, for instance, we license these guys. So we use these for our calendars, our Gantt charts. And these guys for a long time have a JavaScript component, but they also provide them in React as well these days. So again, this is just sort of showing that we too use and have for a long time used third-party commercial providers for our presentation and for components. Other libraries that you may incorporate, might include, say, OpenLayers. And OpenLayers has been our primary geospatial presentation layer. Now, they haven't specifically deployed it as a web component historically, but it doesn't stop us from interacting with it and using their libraries. So this is kind of us wrapping up the sort of that pure, just simple UI as a JavaScript plugin, as opposed to a component which really has a JavaScript plus the full HTML and everything else that sort of goes with it. So I suppose what I'm saying is, and what the whole point of this is don't be constrained by what you see within our applications or what you see within our documentation website, on our Formbird documentation. There's great opportunity to just take a component that you're wanting to, provide a user in, either be a presentation layer or a data collection type thing, and really leverage it within your application. You don't have to wait for us to dream something up or start using it. So any sort of questions on it, or is everyone going to sleep on that?
No, I thought that was great, Mark. That was a really, really concise presentation. How much of
Paul.
how much of that's going to be on the exam? That's what I want to know. All right. Well, so that was components, the great web components. We've got to sort of make sure we say web components because that is the key word. If you're looking for things, make sure you're looking for web components. And you too one day could become a Formbird developer.
So searching for web components or React components is a good keyword. But like I said,
use React components plus the thing you want to do. I think is probably the best way to do it. Yeah. So it might.
So, can I ask a question, Mark? So, like right now, I have an issue with specifically open layers. I can't seem to get the WMTS to work, and basically, I think that you guys have only implemented the WMS. So if I was to implement that without going into detail, how would I go about that, more or less?
Well, firstly, in our selected asset and a couple of our exposures, almost even if we haven't defined it, you can interact with the Java, the library itself directly. Alternatively, you start to build up. These open layers and the sort of JavaScript native libraries are a little bit more complex. The beauty of the sort of the web component standards is kind of it standardizes it so that it's more like a PowerPoint plugin, as in there's a standardized interface for talking to it. And it sort of eliminates some of the workload that a developer has to do. Whereas a pure sort of JavaScript historic a library like OpenLayers does require, a lot of sort of low-level function calling and what have you. And in our environment or in the components we've developed based on OpenLayers, we do hide a bit of that and provide a sort of our component integration, which then talks to the APIs. Okay, so this is kind of that's why components have come up or moved from these pure JavaScripty libraries, because they really sort of mean that implementation is faster, it's standardized, more people can get access to it and get them going much faster. So with OpenLayers, you really need to, talk to it as a library and sort of wrap it up with your own JavaScript, open the library, open the object and start talking to it with a lot of JavaScript. The beauty of the components, like I said, it's sort of like a standard, it's, creating a 240 volt plugin where people say, all right, I know how to talk to this because all components are the same. And if I send this bit of data to it, and it's all defined, it will then accept it, render it, display it, and away you go.
Thank you.
Okay. So, now we're going to hear from Grant, who's also going to give us web components in the raw.
No, not
in the raw.
No, the finished product.
Fully clothed.
That's right, fully clothed.
Okay, so tell us all about what you've been working on there, Grant.
Stretch these metaphors. Where's Zoom? Where are you? There you are. Okay, let me share screen. Oh dear. Google. Is that?
Not yet.
No, I'm just trying to figure which one I'm sharing. It's because it's not showing me the little pictures of them. Sorry, just bear with me a second here. I'm going to just go with the whole desktop, which is a bit. It's not giving me a view of which. I'm just going to have to do trial and error here a little bit.
You're not connected on the VPN, are you?
I may be.
Yeah, that will cause an issue.
Will it?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to maybe let Josh do his demo and I'll drop off and come back on? And
yeah, sure. Okay, no worries. We will Move. Oh, Josh, you got pushed to the push further forward. Are you ready to go, Josh?
I can be ready to go.
Oh, that's
guys all
look
set
at
up?
Josh.
Oh,
He knows.
he's so quick.
All right.
Sorry, Grant.
So essentially,
Grant.
I want to show you guys the new PDF generation component. So essentially what it allows you to do is take a whole lot of data on our site. So example here is obtain AC certificate, which is one of GWW's sort of processes or actions. So the PDF generation can be for auditing, delivery confirmations, or whatever other purposes you guys could see fit. And you can kind of define it in any way or configuration that you'd like. And have a look at the Formbird documentation for being able to or how to do that. So having a look here, like the case that I want to show you is sort of, it's an audit that's completed by Greater Western Water. And it's for asbestos handling and transport compliance. So I've sort of gone through and pre-filled a lot of the data. But just to give you guys a bit of an idea, we've sort of got like the main headers. I'm sure you guys have seen all this and have similar setups in your environment. So you've sort of got the address. We're going to undertake a new inspection. I've pre-filled a lot of the data for client name and like whether the license is current, personnel, whether there's a removal plan and the rest of it. And I'll just finish off with sort of license transporter and transporter name. Always love the typing in live action. And then I'll just sort of finalize by adding in an image. So evidence that the transport has the license. As you can see, they're very relevant pictures. And then, so yeah, we've finished that. We've made sure it's all right. We want to now go to sign it. So I'm going to have them sign it, and then the asbestos removalist is going to sign it. So for the extent of this, we're going to be Bob Frank. I finished it. So now we want to set status to completed. Make sure that we've set a primary asset. So you can add in a number of rules that I'm sure you guys are all very much aware of. Go through to completed. The rules are now going to run, and we're going to generate our own component. So it's automatically adding it to our attached asbestos certificate area. And if you can scroll further down where the actual component is, we will come up with a inspection report. So this is sort of an example template. I can open it up in a new page or whatnot, but you've sort of got general asbestos certificate clearance, all the relevant details, and we throw through, you sort of got inspection. So you can sort of lay it out however you want, and you sort of got all the different details, everything that we wanted or have on this action. You can then format nicely into the PDF for then to be able to provide to a client or whatnot. And then we can add sort of attachments at the end. So yeah, does anyone got any questions there? That's pretty well explained.
I was just going to quickly explain, Josh, the formatting for people who sort of, again, going a little bit techo. Essentially, it's what's it called? The meta language. It's like a HTML for PDF generation. So you've got a lot of flexibility of sort of defining headers and columns and grids and tables and stuff, and then that's what gets published. So there's what's it called?
Essentially, what we're using is a library called PDF Make. So this allows you to sort of define whatever you want. If we go have a look at the playground, it's pretty similar of what we implement. So you've sort of got like a basic construct. The main reason we've gone with this is it allows for ultimate customization of what you want to see. As it sort of does go down to the coding level of things. And so that's like, don't be scared. It's very well like documented and takes you through. So like here you sort of got your first paragraph and sort of you can define it as how you want, and then you've got your PDF on the right. So you can include images, you can include signatures, anything that you want to see, and you can define your own heading levels and the rest of it. We can provide you with an example template that you can then start and work off, and we can go from there. Has anyone else got any other questions?
I was just going to also add to that, guys, the if you notice there, part of the process or what we've added in into our wrapping of this component is the ability then for it to auto-generate and create that attachment, which means that we can incorporate it into a sort of, a hidden process in the sense that it will generate the PDF, attach it, and then you might trigger an email or some sort of further workflow, which is what's going to happen here. So it's not necessarily just a pure front-end print and do what you want. You can actually then incorporate this PDF generation, have it generated, have it emailed, and then have it still attached to that document that's sitting there.
Action.
So that's quite a powerful overall solution. So it combines both the ability to do it real time, press print, interact with it, and or do it as a back end process, generate it, email it, and let it just sit there and be referenced later on.
Yep. Cool.
Oh, thank you very much, Josh. That was great. Well done. And so quick. All that pre-filling really worked out well.
He's created a tough act to follow, I think.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Well. Okay. Grant. Well, let's hand over to you, and you are going to actually demonstrate some other components. Hot Shutoff blocks.
I am.
Are they hot?
Well, I'm actually going to start with the KPI report.
Oh, no, damn.
Okay. Share screen. Oh, look at that.
It worked. Woo-hoo. Okay, so so this I guess this was intended to demonstrate I'll do this one first. This is intended to demonstrate the web components in action. So we have a project with Greater Western Water at the moment to generate KPI reports that monitor the performance of the contract with PFM. And it's kind of like a monthly report, and there's a whole bunch of measures, average time to attend bursts and leaks and so forth. And the intention was to provide a nice presentation of the month-by-month performance, and which you can see plotted here, and to show whether the KPI was on target or not. And so, in looking to try and present this in a nice way, I went looking at what we wanted, and we wanted a grid that could show different colours for the different values, and so we've used a library called MUI Grid to do that. So my developer went and found a nice grid for doing it. And we also wanted to embed some extra little features. So we wanted a little line graph to show the trend over time. So he's been able to embed a little graph here. And when I click on it, there's a little embedded component that shows an expanded version with values on it. So you can see the trend line. So this is the kind of thing where, I constructed in PowerPoint, this is roughly what I wanted it to look like. And we looked around for some libraries, and pretty quickly, our developer was able to turn around one of these, actually utilize a couple of web components and generate a very nice looking little display.
And I believe, Grant, these are React, aren't they? These are React components, React web components. My understanding.
We looked at a couple, so I actually can't remember whether we looked at a React one and an Angular one. I can't remember which one we ended up with. But which I guess in some sense, kind of speaks to the power of it, that it was so quick to change between the two that I don't remember which one.
Yeah.
So that was that's one of the KPI reports, and then underneath that we'll be able to. I haven't quite implemented this yet, but we'll be able to drill from that overall report to a more detailed report. And so we have a different presentation of the same web component here. Once again, utilizing that, and then this is another presentation, another version of the web component. So we could get a particular type of behavior of this grid that we were looking for, which was to be able to open and expand it and show an action with its failure code underneath. So this is just one example of the implementation of web components. This one's a little another little project that we've done. So this is a project to look at the marking of hot shutoff blocks. So Greater Western Water go around when they determine that a service area or a shutoff block has been interrupted more than how many times is it, Lockie?
5 times in a year,
times.
or a certain other period over 3 years.
Yeah, and when the pipe's sort of set for renewal, it gets registered in the system on this template here, a hot shutoff block, and this is one that I've commenced the creation of. And then the challenge was, at the moment, when those shutoff blocks are created, one of the administrators at Greater Western Water creates a case and actions to go out and mark the valves to show that they're on a hot shutoff block. And that process at the moment involves going into the GIS and manually printing out a little PDF and then updating that little PDF with some instruction text boxes on it, and then saving those, and then creating a case in Clarity and making an action, and then attaching the PDF to the action, and then assigning it to the crew. And then, of course, when the crew get out there, they have to open the PDF. I think you can see it's not a very productive way of doing it. So the intention was to try and automate that case and action creation based on the selection of the pipes that are constitute the shutoff block. So you can see a number of pipes I've already selected here. We've automatically determined the valves that are attached to them. And this is also showing the properties that are affected by that shutoff block. And what we've implemented here, this is a little web component. Here, another little grid, and when I click this button, I hope it's going to calculate the valve markers. So it's processing away, processing. Okay, nearly done. It's already figured out the alignments of them based on the orientation of the pipes, and it's worked out the marker types. So you can see those here. If I just zoom in a little bit. There we go. It's displaying those valve markers. So you can see there's a pink marker here. There's a pink-white here. So white on one side is not part of the shutoff block, and pink is part of the shutoff block. This one, it looks like it's misoriented, but if we actually zoom in, it's because I hadn't selected the little pipe behind it. So it's showing this pipe as being not part of the block, and this part that I had selected as being part of the block. So it's calculated the little marker types. And then if we look at this and we say, well, in fact, that valve, we don't really want to mark it that way because we know some more information about this valve. It actually needs to have a different type. We can edit it. And this is another little embedded component, a little drop down inside the grid. And we can now mark that, let's say, as a fire service valve. Or we might say, actually, we know from on site that actually that valve isn't actually oriented that way. It's actually oriented this way, and we can edit in the grid, and it's updating directly in the map. Once I'm happy with that valve marking that I've worked out, I can then create a case. Okay, we've just created a little valve marking case, and this is a link to the case. But you can see here I've generated 3 actions to go out, and we actually generate a maintain valve, which is so that when the crew goes out there, they'll actually be assigned some work to actually report on the condition of the valve as well as mark it. If they go to the valve, you can see there's a little map showing the same data, showing the orientation of the marking, and we've folded through an instruction about what we'd like to do. Oh, don't look at that. There's a little bit of work to do still. But yeah, so that's a demonstration of a new process that we're in the process of implementing for Greater Western Water, and shows you what you can do with web components.
Cool.
Any questions?
So what's next, do you think, Grant? Have you got another web component that you're working on next?
Let me think. I think that's a question without notice.
Okay, I like to keep you on your toes. That was such a good interactive demonstration that went extremely well, Grant. So I think we should all appreciate. We can all applaud that.
Yeah. So I think one that we're actually developing as a standard component, but so will be available to everyone to use without any extra development. But we're developing we're calling it card table. It's also sometimes known as a Kanban type of component. And the purpose or the usage that we have in mind for Greater Western Water is they want to be able to have a nice UI for reallocating jobs to different crews and in trays. So that's a component that's in development, and it's probably hopefully it'll get in the next few months, just depending on the priorities of other work. So that's a component that's in work at the moment.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Mark, have you got any final words?
No, I suppose just to reiterate that the form of components is basically every element that you can see within our UI is a component in one form or another. And I suppose today's discussion was about exploring the world of components, I suppose you could say. But also understanding that it's sort of a fundamental part of what we're doing. It's not an add-on. It's not just something special within our architecture. It's actually a fundamental component of our architecture and how it all functions. So everything you see on a Formbird form is one form of a component, and the only variations is that some of them we turn into components. In the case, as we're talking with Gabby, through the use of libraries like the JavaScript library for our geospatial, which is the Open Layers library.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things that struck me when I heard it was that it is a standard that is being applied throughout the entire industry. So there are commonalities with other applications.
Yes, and it's growing with the introduction of the web component standard. Which is, taking the sort of proprietary elements of the Angular component and the React component and standardizing it. And then that is being enhanced with the capabilities of the browser technologies in terms of what the browsers offer. It's really starting to provide a far greater open and standard market that we'll be able to just continue to leverage. And you'll see, a lot more exciting, things you can do. Not that what's out there is not exciting, but it actually is becoming easier and easier to just grab something, plug it in, present the data, interact with it, and go for it. In the case of that KPI report that Grant was showing, what that represents about 10 weeks or 10 weeks ago we started or something like that. I mean, it wasn't yesterday, but a lot of fiddling around and playing around with the UI and what we can do with it. But some of the really cool things about that report and whether people noticed was even that little chart on that display. They weren't just sort of random presentations of the charts; they were actually a true representation of the chart. So you can get some real cool combinations.
Yeah. I think, and it's worth pointing out that the 10 weeks was not actually anything. The web component development wasn't 10 weeks at all. That's been a very small part of it. In fact, actually getting the data set together in the back end has been more challenging for that report, and that's what's taken 10 weeks. I would say there's probably only about 1 to 2 weeks of development's been required to get those components displaying like that.
Yeah.
So very fast.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Any thoughts, questions from anyone? All stunned.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll
Blown away.
Yeah. We don't need to read out the section 32. We'll just go straight to the end. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and we'll see you again. It looks like the 16th of March. So that's next year, obviously. And so on the 16th of March, I'll send out this video first so everyone gets a copy of the video. If you missed it, or if you're here now, obviously. And you will also get an invite to the 16th of March at 11 a.m. again. So I shall, from the outlying Formbird campus in Mount Macedon, I'll say goodbye. And say goodbye. See you later, everybody.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.